Welcome back to the Adaptive Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hotho. And on today's episode, I'm excited to introduce you to Elicia Meairs. Elicia is an adaptive athlete, a wheelchair racer, and does CrossFit on the side. She currently competes in category T34 and is trying to make it to the Paralympics, racing in the 100 meter and the 800 meter. She was born with cerebral palsy, and since this is CP Awareness Month, we're featuring athletes with CP on Mondays throughout the month of March. So we're really excited to hear Elicia's story. Elicia, welcome to the show. And to kick us off, tell us a little bit about your impairment and what got you started in competitive Paralympic track and field.
So my disability is cerebral palsy. The specific type of cerebral palsy that I have is spastic diplegic.
And as someone who also has CP, you were diagnosed with that at birth or shortly after birth?
So I was diagnosed with it at 3 years old.
Okay.
I was born premature at 24 weeks. I weighed 1 pound, 8 ounces. Wow. I could literally fit in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. And so you were diagnosed at 3 weeks. You weren't, or three months, I mean. So 3 years, sorry. So you weren't walking yet. You weren't walking yet. And they were like, oh, something's not right here.
So I actually was walking,
Okay.
but they could tell that like my gait wasn't quite right. So they're like, that's odd.
Yeah, that's right. My mom would say that like she would take me for my checkups when I was like 18 or 20 months old. And like she'd be like, look, doctor, when I sit him up, he just falls over because I didn't have control of my right side. And
right.
And the doctor would be like, the doctor would just like put me back up upright and be like, no, he doesn't.
It's like, yeah, no, he don't.
Yeah.
Well, boop. That's okay. They took me to a CP clinic, and you know how like our muscles are like super tight?
Mm-hmm.
Well, mine, I had the selective dorsal rhizotomy when I was 12, 10?
Oh, interesting.
12. Okay. 12. But back then, like my muscles were literally stuck together. So like you literally had to like take the time to stretch my muscles in order for me to like fully open them. Well, this nurse pissed off both of my parents because she, instead of taking the time to actually stretch my muscles, she just went like that.
Oh, that must have hurt so bad.
Yeah, no, I cried.
Yeah.
Apparently. Apparently, wow. I cried.
So growing up with CP, did that stop you from doing anything athletic? Had you always been athletic? Have you always just kind of gone for it?
Oh yeah. Okay. My mom was very athletic. She played every position on the softball team. She did volleyball. Pretty much every sport you could think of, she did. So I've got it in my blood.
Yeah.
I started track and field when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
Done it ever since. It was
Were you in a chair when you started at 5?
No. So I actually started standing. I would run with my walker and stuff.
Wow.
And then so it wasn't until we moved to San Antonio, Texas, where I currently reside, that I got with a awesome organization called Texas Parasport, where they actually got me into a racer, is what we call the wheelchair. So I actually just got done with practice. I told my coach, hey, I got an interview today, so I gotta leave early. And he's like, okay. And I was like, okay, cool. So nice. Yes, I just got done with practice. Like, I've always been athletic. I started when I was 5 years old. The organization that I started at was in Wichita, Kansas. It's called Wichita Adaptive Sports. Super awesome organization. I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
That's great. So you got started at a young age, and then you found track and field. And then when did you get in a racer, kind of like in the chair, I guess, to kind of start racing then, more like what we think of when we think about Paralympians who race in track?
So I didn't start in the racer until I was about 12 years old.
Okay. And I would assume, like, I see people in a racer, like they're leaning forward quite a bit. Is it,
Yes.
and you're
Yes.
using your arms obviously to move the wheels. But is there
Yes.
something like aerodynamic about like leaning forward? Is that
Oh
part of what
yeah.
they train you on? Okay.
It's very, very aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Super aerodynamic. I learned really quickly that when I'm going into the wind, if I'm pushing and I go like and I sit up, I'm still gonna move, but not as fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
learned super quick to what I love to call having my chest glued to my knees,
Okay.
like
So
not moving my chest at all.
what is that? And then I want to move off of this in a second, but like, what does that do for your hamstrings? So, like, I can't sit in that position. How do you get your hamstrings loose enough to be able to lean forward like that?
So with me, uh, CrossFit ties
Hey,
into
that's a good
CrossFit.
transition.
I've always stretched. It comes down to stretching. CrossFit really helps with that. Because with Mike, he always makes sure that I stretch.
Okay.
Like before we take at least 5 to 10 minutes to stretch, like just stretching.
So that's awesome. So I want to dive into, since we brought up CrossFit, we brought up Mike, we brought up stretching. I'm going to kind of start getting us into this constellation of stuff, right? So let's talk about how you discovered CrossFit. And if you want to also introduce us to Mike and who he is, that'd be awesome. And kind of how you got into the CrossFit space. And then we'll talk about kind of what you do in CrossFit to kind of help mitigate your CP.
Yeah. So I got into CrossFit actually. So I noticed that it was actually a thing probably 2 years ago because one of my Australian friends, Natasha Price, who does track and field but also
Okay.
does adaptive CrossFit, like she posts videos and stuff of her just doing CrossFit like all the time, and I'm like, huh, that's actually pretty cool. So then I started looking at it, and then I realized that Wheel Wad was branching off of CrossFit Games and going into their own event last year, which was here at San Antonio. So I was like, I am so going to volunteer. Plus, the added bonus is, of course, getting to see my coach, Mike Eaton, who is a Marine veteran, double amputee, who has done CrossFit for like forever to me.
Yeah.
Forever. Well known in the community. Is just so awesome, so super. I just adore him a lot. So
And a
glad he's
killer
my
mustache.
coach. Oh yeah, killer mustache. Killer mustache.
Where do you guys train out of? Where does he coach and train out of?
We train out of the Tribe.
Yeah, so yeah, that was kind of serendipitous then that the CrossFit Adaptive Games came to San Antonio, right in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I was there last year. I don't think we met, but I heard that you volunteered on the scoring team. Is that right? Kind of help keep track of all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. Thank you, by the way.
I was wheeling back and forth like for like 3 days straight, and I was like by the third day, I was like, I am so sore.
Yeah.
I ended up actually sneaking into the massage area. I got an appointment. I was like, I can't keep doing this without getting work done.
Yeah. So
I was like, I am so sorry.
So I think that's super interesting because where do you get sore like when you're wheeling around a lot? Is it your shoulders? Is it your triceps?
It's mainly my shoulders that get sore.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. Like, I mean, I would assume it's kind of like in a row or something like that where you're doing pulling and pushing and kind of working that. You talked earlier about how stretching in CrossFit kind of helps you then with your Paralympic training, which real quick, you are in the category 34.
Yes.
T34. So if people are trying to follow along with your Paralympic journey, you'd be T34.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But so CrossFit helps you kind of stretch with stretching. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know as someone with CP, it's always muscle tightness, right? I can finish a workout and then the next day people are like, yeah, I really felt that workout. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea what it means to feel the workout, you guys.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what your stretching routine's like.
So we do quad stretches, pulling the hamstring, your ankle to your back. That's the way I do it, because I lay down and then I do it that way because that's the easiest way for me.
Nice.
And then on top of that, I do the butterfly stretch. I'm always so surprised by how flexible I am with that stretch. And I'm like, I'm so flexible.
I have no clue what you're talking about in terms of flexibility. I feel like maybe it's just getting older, but I feel like everything's just like tightening up. So CrossFit kind of helps you then with kind of what you need for your Paralympic training.
Right.
Yeah. So you discovered CrossFit through Mike. Let's talk then about the Paralympic side of things. So track T34. So that's your category in Paralympics. What do you race? What are your races?
So the Paralympics. So for my classification, we only have the 100 and the 800.
Oh,
for the
interesting.
Track side of things. Yeah, it's very interesting. Two very different races.
Yeah.
The 100's a sprint.
Yeah.
But the 800 is like not quite long distance, but the Paralympics is like, yeah, that's long distance. And I'm just like, it's not long distance, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's not, but okay. It's more like a medium distance. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. When I'm not doing Paralympic wise, because we've got track meets that aren't like for the Paralympics, like one of them is the Texas, they just changed the name, the Texas Para Games.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is here in San Antonio, which is like so cool. The organization that puts it on is the Texas Parasport, the organization that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's ran by Coach Saul Mendoza.
Okay.
He is a Paralympian, well, Olympian and Paralympian. He's done both. He's got a lot of medals, so I can't give you an exact number of medals because he's done a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love that community that you guys have in Texas, right? I felt it when I was there, even being at Morgan Sports. Just that, like, oh, there's places for people, especially for wheelies, right? Like, I mean, for me, it's just like, okay, the cool part about it was getting to compete with other guys who have neurological disabilities, but like standing. But I felt like for the wheelies, it felt like, man, Morgan Sports just must have felt so cool to have a space that's just like really designed for you guys.
So what's really cool about Morgan's is that they've got Morgan Sports, which is what you saw at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And then we've got the MAC Center, the Multi-Accessible Center. It's pretty much anything you could think of, from PT to OT to doctor's appointments.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's got everything that you could want all in one spot, which is so awesome for just people with disabilities. They even have a salon in the MAC Center, so it's so fun. And then on top of it, we've got Morgan's Wonderland Camp, which is 13,000 acres, I think, and it's again multi-accessible. They've got a zip line that's accessible for wheelchair users.
Yeah.
They've got horses, like pretty much anything you could think of, they have. And then we've got Morgan's Wonderland, which is the theme park. Okay. And then the last one is the Morgan's Wonderland Inspiration Island.
And that's the waterfront.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, so it's so fun, so cool. I love Gordon, the owner. He created it for his daughter.
Oh, cool.
Morgan, who the story goes that they were on vacation, and she has some intellectual disabilities.
Hmm.
So she was wanting to play with some boys that were playing and stuff, but the boys didn't know how to interact with her, so she felt left out. So Gordon, her dad, was like, okay, well, I don't want anyone else to feel this way. And I know that there's a lot of people with disabilities out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he decided to create Morgan's Wonderland.
That's really cool. That's a great story. And it's created this whole community there in Texas that I can see is just really rich of people who feel like they have a place where they belong. All right. So we're going to jump to a lightning round here. We're going to see, I'm just going to ask you some quick questions, see what you think about these. So would you rather do 100 wall balls or 100 burpees?
Ooh, I say wall balls.
Oh, okay.
I hate
Fair.
burpees.
Yeah, I do too. I would probably do wall balls too. If you had to pick the music every day at the gym, what would you be playing?
Heavy metal.
Whoa,
Hear me
I
out.
did not see that one come. Okay, hit
Hear
me.
me out. 4 main bands that I like play on the daily. Bad Omens, Lorna Shore, Sleep Token, and then the last one, Falling in Reverse. Okay, I'm adding a fifth one because I can't not mention this band, Motionless in White.
Okay, deal. Well, I've got a friend who, when they listen to this, will be very excited because they also listen to a lot of death metal, and if they had, or even heavy metal, and so if they had a choice to pick the music, it would also be that type of music. Okay, what would be your ideal workout if you had to like develop a workout? What would it be? It can be one that's already made, but you could also, if you could make your own.
Well, one of my favorite wrestlers, Rhea Ripley, she did an arm workout. It was bicep curls, tricep extensions, and then we'll just say wall balls.
Okay,
I can't think of the actual last one, so we'll just say wall balls.
There you go. Okay, cool.
And then to add to it, I would add cardio. My favorite machine ever is the skier.
I thought you might say that.
Love the skier.
Do you do the skier standing or seated?
Seated.
Yeah. No, I've seen wheelies just go to town on the skier. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. I bet you destroy that thing. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. All right. 2 more questions. You've done some traveling for the Paralympics. So what is the favorite place that you've gotten to travel to for competition?
Well, so far I've only gotten to go to Thailand.
Okay.
But I'm working towards, so World Para Championships are actually going to be in New Delhi.
Oh, wow.
I'm working towards that, so we'll see.
All right. And final question, what is a famous Olympian or athlete that you would love to meet? Or maybe that you met, but you'd like to sit down with and like actually get to talk to for like 10 to 15 minutes?
Most of the people that I look up to, I'm friends with.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put a curve on this.
Okay.
I'm gonna say WWE legend that I have not sat down with and talked to.
And that is?
The Undertaker. The Undertaker. Mark Calloway.
I really did not see this going here. The Undertaker. So,
The Undertaker.
Okay. So actually, and this is going to be my final question. And this isn't, well, I guess I have one more after this too. We're out of the lightning round now. But you've obviously mentioned multiple WWE wrestlers. So I assume you're a big fan of WWE?
Oh, yeah. Just pro wrestling in general. I watch AEW, All Elite Wrestling.
Okay.
WWE, NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Wow.
ROH, Ring of Honor.
Okay. That's awesome. What do you like about pro wrestling?
The community within it. If you look on my Facebook, I share videos like Sting just met, he surprised a kid that has a disability. And then there's another video of Matt and Jeff Hardy who posed with a fan who is in a power chair with their tag team championships.
I love it. That's awesome. I think that's a really kind of niche thing, but it's kind of fun to meet somebody who's really into it and kind of have that connected, just a passion of theirs. So want to go meet these people and, get to know them. So as we kind of bring this to a close, this is an Adaptive Athletes podcast, not a WWE fan club podcast. even though this has been fun. If you could encourage a younger version of yourself, and I know it might be a weird question since you are like, early 20s or something like that, but if you could encourage a younger version of yourself, what would you say to them as they're kind of getting into discovering fitness, discovering themselves? Like, what would you say to them to encourage them? What do you wish maybe someone had said to you at one point?
Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do.
Yeah.
And then another one, I'm gonna steal John Cena's line because it's his farewell tour. So stealing it, you can yell at me later. Don't give up. That's like the main thing. Don't give up. Yeah. Just you can do anything you put your mind to. Like that's just a mindset that I've had forever.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, Elicia. I am so glad that we had this time to chat today. This was super fun. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to, or anybody that we should make sure that people know about in the adaptive space? I know you've kind of tagged Texas Para Games. I think on your social you tagged Move United.
Top 3 would be Texas Para Games.
Okay.
Morgan's.
Okay.
And then I would say Move United.
Well, thanks so much for giving me a shout out. Thank you, Elicia. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Adaptive Athlete Podcast. I'll be honest with you, I did not expect to be discussing professional wrestling so much, and yet it was a nice harkening back to my childhood when I watched a heck of a lot of professional wrestling. So Elicia, thanks so much for bringing me back to those great feels of watching Bret Hart throw down and all the great memories I have of the WWF. Elicia mentioned 3 organizations towards the end of this episode: Texas Parasports, Morgan's Wonderland, and Move United. You can find more about each of those organizations in the show notes. I'll also mention that Morgan's Wonderland was the location for day 1's activities of the 2024 Adaptive CrossFit Games. Also, Elicia mentioned that she volunteered at the Wheelwad Games in 2024. If you or someone you know wants to volunteer for this year's 2025 Adaptive CrossFit Games, you can send an email to volunteer@wheelwad.com to get involved in helping make the Adaptive CrossFit Games happen in 2025. And you'll get to go to Vegas, and maybe we'll get to meet while we're there. Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. We'll see you next time.